I hit Celestial solo queuing as mostly Luna Snow in Season 1, and I wanted to share some gameplay tips for fellow K-pop enthusiasts hoping to climb. Climbing with Luna in the lower ranks will be highly dependent on your individual performance. I was able to climb to Gold 3 with an 82% win rate over 17 games. Once you hit the higher ranks, team play and team synergy become more important than individual skill. Luna also gets banned sometimes in Diamond and higher. I was able to play her in 14 of the 20 Diamond games I played. I eventually hit Grandmasters and my Luna win rate dropped to 76% over 55 games. When I finally hit Celestial, my win rate fell by 1% to 75% over 76 Luna games. I was going no mic for my climb, but if you think it'll help your team work better together, the option is available for you to use comms beyond pings. I recommend Luna Snow to players who want to control the flow of battle with her powerful abilities that can swing teamfights in her team's favor. She is capable of doing damage while healing the team, but she requires a certain level of aim. She can low-key carry the team with all the value she brings to each teamfight when played correctly. Let's quickly go over her kit. Luna's primary fire shoots 3 hit scan needles per activation that can heal allies or damage enemies. With her seasonal healing bonus, she heals more per needle than damage. Luna can headshot enemies for critical damage but cannot headshot allies for bigger heals. Luna's crowd control ability shoots a projectile ice ball that freezes the first enemy hit. Any source of damage will break the frozen target out before the full freeze duration. Luna's strongest ability is her Ice Arts, which shoots a log that pierces allies for health and enemies for damage. Luna can give one teammate a snowflake that heals them whenever Luna heals any ally. Luna's ultimate ability is a moving concert centered on her that lets her heal or damage boost allies. Upon activation, she gains crowd control immunity and a big chunk of bonus health. She is only able to move or toggle between healing or damage boosting during the concert. Luna's passive mobility lets her start skating when moving forward for more than a short duration. Jumping while skating will let her go higher than jumping normally. Luna's main source of self-sustain outside her ultimate is her passive, which regenerates some health upon casting her Ice Ball, her Ice Arts, or her team-up with Iron Fist. Luna's team-up with Iron Fist lets her radiate a ring that instantly heals her and her allies while knocking enemies away and slowing them. Luna's team-up with Namor and Jeff allows them to use powered-up versions of their abilities. You don't need to press anything for them to activate it. Namor gets a blue squid and Jeff gets ice attacks. It's also important to note a few additional mechanics related to Luna's kit. Luna's ultimate requires line of sight from her body to her allies. The line of sight can be blocked by enemy shields, so be sure to adjust your positioning as needed while ulting. Luna's self-healing from her passive upon ability cast does not stack, so if you need all of the self-healing, be sure to stagger the abilities at least 3 seconds between each other. Manually hitting reload after running out of bullets is slightly faster than letting the game automatically reload for you. Casting Ice Arts will give you infinite ammo until the buff runs out. Once your buff runs out, your primary fire ammo will be refilled. You can use this as a reload to achieve higher shooting uptime by using Ice Arts instead of going through the reloading animation. The amount healed by the snowflake is a smaller portion of how much Luna healed. The snowflake will stay on the ally until they die or until Luna changes snowflake targets. When healing the same target with the snowflake will still heal them for the additional snowflake amount on top of your healing. You can use this to burst heal in a pinch. The downside is the snowflake cast animation, so it's not ideal to constantly change snowflake targets. You can see how much health your snowflake target has represented by the outline on their portrait even when they're not on your screen. You move faster than most characters in the game while skating. You can also skate faster than Storm's ultimate if she doesn't catch you in it first. When you freeze an enemy with your ice ball, during the first half second of the frozen effect, you can damage them and they won't be broken out of the freeze. This mechanic allows you to do free damage and more easily secure kills on frozen targets. Using your piercing log ability does reduce your single target DPS from 60 per primary fire to 50 per log, and if you include headshots, it's reduced from 120 per primary fire. However, the ability gives you the capability of piercing targets with a more generous hitbox, so if you don't have amazing aim, and as long as you're hitting 2 targets, it's worth using. You need to hit at least 3 targets for it to be more DPS than landing headshots with all 3 needles. What you should be doing every game is determined by your priorities. These priorities are a guideline and not strict rules to adhere to. Your number one priority is staying alive throughout each team fight. You can't provide any value from healing or damaging while you're dead, so you should aim to survive to help your team get through each team fight. If you lose the team fight and you aren't able to escape to regroup safely, at the very least, you should die with the team to avoid staggering death timers. Ideally, you're able to regroup safely while dealing damage to keep building your ultimate. My recommendations to staying alive is to have good positioning near cover. You can achieve this by standing at an angle behind the wall while still keeping sightlines on your team so you can heal them. High ground relative to the enemy is also considered cover because you can back away from the edge as needed. You should always have either your team or some form of cover between the enemy and yourself. With good positioning, you will see the state of the fight better since you can see enemies trying to flank and which of your allies are under heavy fire. You can then use your abilities to add value to the fight or deny enemy value as necessary. The most important thing for strategists is to have good positioning, which forces the enemy team to put in time and effort to hunt you down. They will either have to go through your team, which is hard because you're healing them, or snipe you, which is hard as long as you stay behind cover, or flank you from an off angle. In general, if the enemy team has a lot of frontal damage, you should be taking cover to heal your team from a safe angle. If a ranged character is trying to flank you from an off angle, the best solution is to kill the flanker yourself with your damage and ice ball. If you aren't able to do that, you can rotate around cover so you can keep healing your team and regrouping with them while alerting to them that you need help. Don't forget to activate your self-heal passive if you have cooldowns available. Luna is most susceptible to divers and flankers due to her weak self-sustain. In general, if you see a diver or flanker, be sure to shoot them and ping them ahead of time to weaken their pressure before they can go in. If you can kill them by yourself with your damage and or stall them with your ice ball, that's the best solution. If you are not able to fend against divers or flankers by yourself, you should play closer to your team to get help staying alive with heals or shields and help with damaging or disabling the diver to kill them or at least make them go away. However, you shouldn't be so close that you start receiving collateral damage from their front line. If you get dove, be sure to try to rotate closer to your team while attempting to land your abilities on them to activate your self-heal passive and dissuade them from finishing their combo. You should never back away from your team versus a diver or flanker because those characters specialize in killing off isolated backline characters. Your number 2 priority is keeping the team alive. As a strategist, you have tools in your kit to help your team stay alive. There's no team to support if everyone is dead. Keeping your teammates healthy gives them the confidence to make plays and get kills, and of course, the act of healing your team denies the enemy from kills. Luna is one of the best enablers for ally flankers because she can heal ally flankers without line of sight. Once you put your snowflake on your flanker, you can constantly heal your frontline and the snowflake target will receive heals too. The extra heals may give them the extra confidence to secure kills or help them survive and win their 1v1. If your flanker dies, make sure to put it on someone else for snowflake healing uptime. If there are no ally flankers to put it on, I recommend putting it on a DPS that will likely be hard to heal due to their mobility or someone you want to enable. Luna has a lot of fight swinging options in her kit. Aside from her ult, she can use her snowflake as necessary to burst heal a single target. She can also at the same time as the snowflake burst use ice arts which allow her to heal and damage multiple targets at the same time. There's also a general priority for who you should be healing in every moment. But due to how Luna has a lot of healing flexibility in her kit, like the capability of healing multiple allies at once, the healing priorities listed are a recommended guideline and not a strict rule. The priorities presented are intertwined and have conditions. A general overview for the priorities are allies that are ulting, then low health co-supports, then whoever has lower actual health among critical duelists and vanguards, then slightly damaged strategists, then slightly damaged duelists, and then finally slightly damaged vanguards. Your top priority is keeping an ally that's using their ultimate alive. This applies to ultimates with long durations as well as when enemies are trying to focus fire and outdamage defensive ultimates. Along with pocketing the specific person using their ultimate, you should also be helping your other supports stay alive so they can also pocket the same person. The idea is to make sure they get the maximum value from their ultimate. Some example characters with ultimates worth pocketing are Scarlet Witch, Iron Fist, Punisher, Dr.Strange, and Star-Lord. Some characters will have their ultimate come out even if they die mid-cast, like the infamous Moon Knight ultimate. In those situations where he's already ulted, their healing priority follows the rest of the list. However, if Moon Knight is looking to ult, you should be keeping him alive to enable him to use it at the optimal time. This priority is conditional on knowing the person ulting will be able to use their ultimate properly to maximize value and secure kills. If your tank is about to die and your ally ulting has no enemies in sight, it might be more worthwhile to heal your tank up instead of pocketing the person ulting. Your second priority that comes after enabling team ultimates to maximize value is healing your other support that's at risk of dying. Supports are the backbone of the team, and if your other supports die, you will probably die next. You need to heal them enough to have the confidence to walk up and help you heal. If they have a decent amount of health and they're not being targeted, you don't necessarily have to chop them off until everyone else is no longer critical. Your third priority is any other non-support ally that is critical and at risk of dying. If your critical health flanker ally just won their duel and is running towards a health pack, you don't have to run over to them to heal them if your frontline is under heavy fire. In that situation, any time spent running over to the flanker will result in your frontline dying. Stabilize the bulk of your team first before helping the branches. If everyone is equally at risk of death, choose strategists over vanguards over duelists. This is assuming your vanguards no longer have any damage absorbing cooldowns available and therefore are at risk of dying. Your fourth priority is healing the critical health target with the lowest health. The idea is to give vanguards enough health for them to confidently use their damage absorbing resources or stall until those cooldowns are available. Your fifth priority is critical health duelists, assuming your tanks have damage absorbing cooldowns available. The idea is to give your duelists the confidence to re-enter the fight and pressure with damage while giving your vanguards the opportunity to use their available resources. Depending on the situation, like if you're trying to survive the teamfight for as long as possible to gain objective percentage in domination, it may be more important to keep your tank alive long enough to use cooldowns and extend the overall fight than saving a duelist. Of course, if your duelist is looking to ult soon, you should heal them up to enable them. Your sixth priority is healing critical health tanks that have damage absorbing cooldowns available. People can make mistakes, so recognize that this priority becomes priority number 4 if your tank messed up and is about to die because they're so low that the enemy team is focus firing them down through their damage absorbing abilities. Your final priority now that everyone is no longer critical is to top off your healthy support, then your healthy flankers, and then your healthy duelists, and then finally your tanks in preparation for the upcoming fights. Flankers come before the bulk of your team because they need time to walk away and set up for their next engage. Your number 3 priority is to deny enemy value. An easy way is shooting down enemy objects. Enemy objects for each relevant character provides a huge amount of value to them. Although any ally on your team can shoot down objects like Peni's nest, Groot's walls, Invisible Woman's shield, Moon Knight's onks, Rocket's beacon, and Loki's clones, it's a team effort, and since you know that it's one of their value sources, you can help shut it down for your team by putting it on cooldown. Luna has 2 main ways to deny enemy value, which are her Ice Ball and her ultimate. The best way is denying their ultimate with her Ice Ball, and the other way is offsetting enemy offensive ultimates with her healing defensive ultimate. It's better to trade an ability cooldown for an ultimate than an ultimate for an ultimate, so try to consider what you can use to deny enemies. For example, you can stop Scarlet or Spider-Man ult if you freeze them mid-cast. It's good if you can freeze Dr.Strange's ult before he casts it, but even if he gets the cast off, you can freeze him so his dark magic does less damage by the time he can use it. I've never been able to freeze Groot before he got his ultimate off, but there were situations where I froze Groot after his ult and healed the team with my piercing log instead of counter-ulting to survive Groot's post-ult wall combo. There are some situations where you obviously need a counter-ult to survive, like when the enemy combos 2 major resources to try and secure a teamfight. For example, if Rocket and Punisher combo ultimates, they can kill your team through your ultimate's healing. However, you can still pop your ultimate to help your team survive and get behind cover, in which case it'll be trading 2 ultimates for 1 ultimate instead of 2 ultimates for a team wipe. Even if you're trading 1 ultimate for another ultimate, if you're preventing your allies from dying, it may be worth the trade, so don't be afraid to ult when necessary. Make sure to keep moving to dodge as much damage as possible since you can still die in Luna ult. However, sometimes there are cases where even if you ult, it wouldn't save the team, so you need to recognize those situations too. For example, if If everyone is hit by Groot's ultimate and Namor centers his ultimate on the Groot targets, it's unlikely any of the squishy targets will survive due to how much damage Namor's ultimate does in the center. Even if you ult, you might not survive, so it's better for you to hold your ultimate for the next fight. If you do ultimate, you're feeding the enemy more value, so knowing when to hold your ultimate is key to denying enemy value as well. A less obvious way of denying value is to notify your team with pings on enemy flanker locations. One of the advantages flankers have is the element of surprise that enables them to burst down targets and get out alive. This is especially important for Black Panther, who literally has an ability called Subtle Step that lets him be sneaky and flank from above. You can mitigate the value of their dive combo by pinging them and damaging them so they're discouraged from finishing their combo. Your number 4 priority is to always create value by shooting. High uptime on shooting is key to Luna's overall value provided to the team. You need to always be shooting to maintain uptime. You can shoot down enemy objects, farm ultimate by healing allies or pressuring enemies with damage, or even helping in securing kills, all of which add value for your team. Shooting enemies even when both teams are using defensive support ults will still build you ultimate charge without giving a lot of ult charge to their supports that aren't ulting. However, achieving high uptime doesn't mean you should use your piercing log ability off cooldown. You should be using it in high pressure situations to relieve that pressure and to try and flip it on the enemy instead. I consider this a way of denying enemy value in terms of pressure, which is a higher priority than shooting uptime. If your co-support is likely to be healing the team and everyone is relatively healthy, and if you're in position to, Luna has the option to try to shoot enemies for value in kills secured or ultimate charge gained, while letting your other support gain ultimate charge from the healing. Due to how majority of Luna's kit comes from shooting, you will need some level of aim to play her. My Luna accuracy can range from 40 to 60% but averages at 51%. My critical hit rate is kind of poopy at an average of 11%, but this matters more when you're really trying to min-max value from headshotting enemies. The main point is, you need decent aim to perform well and excellent aim to perform exceptionally, so you may want to consider improving your aim through an aim trainer or checking other available resources on how to aim better. There are also some exceptions for when you should not be shooting. The first exception is where, if you are about to die and you have no available cooldowns to survive, you should prioritize surviving over shooting. For example, if a Thor is trying to run you down while you're low health, you should freeze him if you have it and skate away so you can rotate to a different position, ideally to where it's closer to your team for help or to a place that's hard for him to chase so you can keep healing your team. In a worst case scenario, you may end up abandoning your team to stabilize yourself to then safely re-enter the fight. You won't be able to shoot while skating. In some situations where you've stopped healing your team to survive and your healing is what was keeping them alive, since that stream of healing has stopped, your team will probably end up dying. It's better that you survived alone than if you died while healing your team and then your team got wiped. You've technically mitigated your own staggered revive timer and denied ultimate charge you may have fed to the enemy team. Note that in some situations it may be ideal to heal your team for as long as you can to defend the objective for as long as possible. The second exception is the idea of trying to not feed enemy support ultimates. Make sure that if you're damaging enemies that you're at least gaining ult charge for yourself. Ideally, you would be securing kills on squishy targets or even damaging them enough so they have to hide. The rest of your team can then collapse on the rest of the enemies. Typically, shooting tanks will only feed enemy support ultimates, which can turn the tide quickly, so make sure if you're shooting tanks that you can kill them. The third exception is the case where there are no enemies in range and you have ultimate while your other support does not have ultimate. You should let them heal the team to build their ultimate. You can skate at the enemy to try and get a cheeky kill, but if you already have ultimate, solely poking will only feed enemy support ultimates. Your number 5 priority is to track enemy resources. This becomes increasingly important as you get higher in rank due to how important resource management is, ultimates included. Ideally, you don't want to have wasted your ice ball trying to get a cheeky kill when their Dr.Strange has ultimate, because you're better off saving the ice ball to deny his ultimate. A smart Dr.Strange will see you waste your ice ball, then go in for the ult, which forces you to use Luna ult, so another offensive ult on his team can easily secure kills after. Another example is if you destroy Rocket's respawn beacon, it goes on a long 45-second cooldown. In that situation, depending on the other available resources that can burst heal, you can, with your team, focus fire and burst down a target due to Rocket's inability to burst heal his team. Don't forget that you have the option to communicate resource information to your team if desired. In a situation where as Luna you've killed the Rocket's respawn beacon and you poke out their Loki, You can communicate to your Psylocke that her flank is more likely to secure a kill on Loki because Loki no longer has his healing puddle. She may not have seen him use his puddle because she was finding a health pack somewhere away from line of sight. Rocket doesn't have an available resource to save the Loki either from Psylocke's burst combo. A pick on an enemy greatly increases the chances of winning the overall team fight, especially if it's an enemy strategist. Now that you know what you should generally be doing, you need to understand the flow of the game to understand when you should use abilities and ults and play around available enemy resources. Games like Marvel Rivals put a lot of importance on how well each team can use available resources like your health, shields, or abilities to apply pressure and secure kills. The beginning of each game is pretty chill and is what I consider a poke phase. Not a lot of abilities are being thrown out yet and the teams are walking up to get into contact with each other. In this situation, while you're healing your team or poking the enemy for ult charge, you should be trying to rotate to a good position to easily heal your team when both teams are actively engaging. You also need to be taking note of what kind of team composition the enemy is running. If the enemy team has a fully ranged team with low mobility, then I like to throw my ice ball to try and get a cheeky hit for damage. Maybe one of your allies that are in position can capitalize on the frozen target for a kill. If the enemy team has dive characters that like to get in your face to pressure you, then you may want to hold your ice ball to survive when those characters try to engage you. This time is also ideal to ping or poke any flankers trying to set up. When the two teams collide, abilities will start getting thrown out to secure or deny kills. You will start to see your team's health pools dip, and this is when Luna's abilities shine because she can swing the fight easily with her piercing log ability. The best situation to use it is when you have multiple people in front of you that can be hit, so you maximize the value gained per log shot. For example, when there's multiple enemies clumped together, particularly when there's two backline enemies standing behind their tank and you want to heal the tank in front of you, you can use your piercing log to poke out multiple people on their team while healing your tank and using him as the meat shield. You will be essentially relieving pressure on your injured tank while applying pressure on the enemy team. If there are enemy divers on the enemy team, this will also be the perfect time for them to engage you and distract you from healing your frontline. Enemy divers existing on their team will make their frontline weaker than expected because more of their power is coming from the flank. As long as you're able to survive and help your team survive the flankers engage so they die or disengage, you will be able to stabilize your frontline and help them overwhelm their weaker frontline while the flanker is recovering their resources. At this stage, you also need to notice how fast you're gaining your ultimate compared to your other support. If you both have defensive ults and are gaining ultimate at the same time, then you may need to communicate to decide who will ult first. Do your best to avoid stacking defensive support ultimates, but even if accidents happen, it's fine because you can use the damage boost mode. But if your other support is someone like Loki or Rocket, you can let them ult first usually for an increase in pressure and win the fight assuming that you can adequately keep your team alive. You will then be able to counter any upcoming offensive enemy ults. If an ally is about to drop and you have no resource available except your ultimate, in most cases it will be worth saving them with your ult. The collision phase usually continues until either team wins the fight and wipes the other team or forces them to retreat. Ultimates will be built in this time and used mid-fight to try and turn the tide. Luna's ultimate is great even as a momentum swinging ult when your team is slowly being overwhelmed to secure the point when your log ability is on cooldown because it will instantly heal you or your teammate and alleviate pressure. When everyone is full health, you can swap to the damage boost to help your team apply pressure. Just make sure to continue watching your team's health and toggle your ult back to healing as necessary. If you think the enemy is building ult faster than you, they will probably try to use their ult to win the current fight, so you should consider saving your ice ball to try and deny some ultis with the crowd control. Stay out of range to not get caught in the anticipated ult, but generally supports build ult faster than the other roles. At the same time though, you have to recognize that the enemy may not be using their resources to pressure your team, and so you should avoid randomly ulting as an I win button. There are times where it might seem nice for you to ult for the damage buff to help your team secure the team fight, but generally anytime I did this in the middle of a game, I regretted not having my ult for the next time my team was being overwhelmed. Defensive support ultimates are typically better used for major health swings or counter ulting in fights, and Luna's ultimate just has an added benefit of being able to swap to damage boost. Don't hold your ult forever waiting for the perfect moment, but if you can hold your ult for as long as possible before being forced to use it, you'll have an ult advantage and usually win that fight. The enemy will feel helpless from having used all their resources in order to try and get a kill, but not only did they fail, they will now have to deal with 12 seconds of Luna's concert. If you use your ult to alleviate team pressure or counter an enemy ult and the fight hasn't finished, make sure to retreat near the end of your concert to a safe position so you can stay alive and continue providing value and heals or damage to the fight while building ult for the next fight. If the fight is pretty much over and your team was able to overwhelm them, your team should extend forward to try and catch any stragglers to stagger their death timers. Staggering death timers are important because it will take them longer to regroup and be able to initiate another team fight on even grounds, or otherwise risk fighting at a disadvantage with one teammate missing. If your team loses the team fight, you will have to choose between fully retreating or dying on point depending on the situation. If you're trying to defend for as long as possible, it may be better to die on the point to contest than risk being a straggler with a super staggered death timer. Sometimes your team can still move up after a teamfight win even if there are no stragglers to catch to try and gain ultimate charge from poking while the enemy team is trying to move closer to the objective. Your team will slowly back up to the choke or ideal position to hold while trading the poke. It's important to avoid overextending and to avoid fighting near the enemy spawn because their time to rejoin the fight is shorter after dying, and your team's time is longer due to how much walking is required to re-enter the fight if it was near their spawn. The best location for the enemy to fight you is right in front of their spawn, so don't give them this luxury. The staggered timer concept is why it's so hard to push past the little distance right before points on escort maps and why defending teams will almost never hold at attacker spawn and choose to hold at a choke point instead. This is also why you see last-ditch attempts by defending teams near checkpoints and major ultimate usage by attacking teams to maintain momentum and make sure that checkpoint is hit. When escort checkpoints are reached, attacker spawns move up and defender spawns move back. Defending teams typically back up to hold choke points so there's not a major respawn timer advantage for the attackers. After each team fight, the flow of the game sort of resets to the beginning from before the teams collided, except now people on both teams will have varying amounts of ultimates available. You should reflect on how much of your team's resources were used and what major resources the enemy used and will soon become available. It will take some practice to process this information quickly, but this will dictate how you should position for the upcoming fight. For example, if you used Luna ult to win the point, their entire team probably has their ult for this fight. Their Punisher and Rocket might have ultimates available, so you should play near cover in anticipation of their deadly combo. But you also have to anticipate their Dr.Strange and Magneto's upcoming ults that will try to wipe your team or your other support. Your team might have a Mantis ult available to save people and help them move quickly behind natural cover for their ults, but she might make a mistake and not press it in time. If you are not caught in the Agamotto with your superior positioning, you can freeze Dr. Strange before he can pull his combo off and keep all your allies up with your piercing log ability while Strange's other allies are trying to finish them off. You will also have to consider how in a situation where if the enemy Punisher died early in the fight and your team finished the fight before he could come back to the same team fight, he's unlikely to have ultimate yet for the beginning of the next fight, but will probably get his ultimate during the fight and will use it to add pressure if necessary. Ideally, being the pro Luna that froze the Strange from earlier so your Mantis still has ult, you will not be at risk of dying to Punisher ult because of your great positioning. However, your team might be at risk because they're fighting in the open. Your Mantis can then counter ult if the team can't get to cover in time, or maybe your Magneto who finally has ult will decide to punish the Punisher ult with his own ult. In some cases, you may have created enough value yourself to counter his ult with your own ult. In the end, whoever uses their abilities better will win teamfights more while securing objectives and ultimately win the game. A special mention for the Iron Fist team-up ability with Luna that offsets her weakness against dive. It gives Luna better survivability against divers because of how it activates Luna's self-healing passive and provides an instant burst heal to Luna herself. It also knocks away and slows enemies' hit. The burst heal will also burst heal allies if it doesn't need to be saved for enemies running you down, so use it as necessary. Now that you understand what you should be doing in your general decision making depending on the state of the game, you need to understand what your enemy matchups are like and how to deal with them. Adam Warlock does a lot of damage and can burst heal himself or his team, so watch out for his poke. Make sure to have cover nearby to hide in and heal up if he ends up trying to shoot you. Cloak Dagger will come for your backline right after she ults, so watch out for her black window and continuous suction. Make sure to keep your distance and keep everyone healthy unless your team has a counter for it. If Cloak ever flanks you with all her abilities, you can force her to retreat with headshots or shoot some logs at her. If she's trying to fight you in her bubble, don't fight her and skate away. She's susceptible to death once her bubble is over, and if you can freeze and burst her before she uses her invulnerability, she'll probably die. For Loki, make sure to keep those clones on cooldown to minimize his value. They're free headshot targets for you. If you end up poking the real one and he uses his green puddle, he will be very susceptible to death for the next 25 seconds. Loki will usually take high ground with his clones, so watch out for him from above. He can easily kill you with 2 clones shooting at you. For Jeff, if you can freeze him, you can usually secure a kill on him. Backline healer Jeff can be a free kill for you because of his big head hitbox, and your clap easily hits his shark fin to secure the kill. However, flanker Jeff is your worst nightmare. He's annoying to kill and hard to ignore because of all the poke damage. From what I've seen, the best case scenario is you play closer with your team and you take cover from him while focusing on the main fight and keeping eyes on other isolated teammates because Jeff is coming to spit on them. He does reduce damage from far away due to damage fall off, but if he ever tries to swim to the middle of the fight, you can expect him to try to ult. You can dodge his ult with your ult if you're the only target, or use natural cover from the center to dodge it. Rocket Raccoon is hard to kill due to his mobility and small hitbox. He usually can't beat you in a duel unless he's in range of kissing you and somehow lands all his bullets on your head. However, if he's ever out of position, you should definitely poke him so his heal orbs slow down to heal him before reaching his team. For Invisible Woman, you need to watch out for her Sucky Orb and Pull combo, which will do a lot of damage and put you in danger of death. Otherwise, you typically outrange her and can pierce her through her tanks with your logs because of how she prefers standing behind her tanks. Mantis has weak burst healing for her team and herself, so if your team can focus fire her or her teammates down, she can't do much against it. However, she has a lot of damage and provides her team a lot of damage boost, so you may not get an opportunity to shoot her until you use your piercing log skill. In a 1v1, Luna loses unless she can burst Mantis down due to her consistent self-healing and damage boost, but whoever lands their CC, which is her sleep or your freeze, usually wins the duel. Hela, Hawkeye, and Black Widow are scary long-range enemies. These guys can kill you fast from afar through your team. One-shots or fast 2-taps from these snipers are very real, so make sure you don't give them line of sight to you for free. Make sure to play by natural cover and angle yourself to hide from them, but keep healing your team. You can also use your vanguards as meat shields when you're shooting your piercing log. You can counter their ultimates with your ultimates. Note that if you have Strange, he will probably block Hela's ult with his shield, so decide if you need to ult before her second shot. It's risky, but you can try and freeze Hawkeye and Black Widow so they can't follow up on their ult. If you counter ult Hawkeye ult, make sure you don't get yourself killed because he can headshot one-shot you while you're dancing. If you plan to counter Black Widow ult, make sure she doesn't have the Hawkeye team up available to one-shot your entire team. She can also kill low health targets behind cover with her ult, so make sure to keep yourself healthy. For Mr. Fantastic, Thor, and Hulk, keep your distance from them and freeze them if they're trying to flank. They're usually hard to kill without your team's help, so skate away as necessary. If Hulk ults, you can freeze him to stall him, but be aware of how much more long-range damage he can do while in ult. For Venom and Captain America, do your best to play with the team and poke them out if they're trying to engage or dive. If they dive you, freeze them and alert your team to focus fire so they either die or back off. They can easily pick off isolated targets, so make sure you keep an eye on which teammate has a tendency to back into a corner by themselves. You can disconnect Venom's tether by either making him lose line of sight of you or getting far away to reduce his burst damage on you. For Peni, she'll probably never be in range to kill you with normal shots, so you just need to keep your distance and to watch out for her bomb setups. 3 of her bombs stacked up can one-shot you, so be careful when walking up alone. You can freeze her ult cast, or if it doesn't freeze her in time, it'll delay her ult a little bit so your team can back up from her webs. Dr.Strange, Groot, and Magneto should never be within killing range of you, so keep your distance as necessary. Magneto can easily kill you with his range combo, so hide when he targets you. You can freeze Strange's ultimate before he gets it off. You can freeze both Strange and Groot after their ultimates to deny follow-up combos from them. Your piercing log can hurt Magneto through his ultimate, but he's probably going to try to kill you while you're ulting. Juke or dodge his ultimate the best you can. Groot likes to wall your front line off from you so you can break them or maneuver around. If you choose to move around the walls, make sure they won't activate on you from other sources of damage and kill you instead. Make sure to keep your distance from the thing at all times since most of his power is in the melee range. If he charges at you, freeze him after his charge ends and move out of his range since he's likely to use his ult after charging in. The Human Torch is a flying target for you to poke, but watch out for his leftover lava all over the place. He has good zone control, but you just need to walk out of it and heal up if you're caught in it. Be wary of stacks of puddles since he can dive bomb and detonate them to one-shot you in your ultimate. For Magik and Psylocke, do your best to keep your distance from them and poke them out if they're trying to flank. If they engage on you, freeze them and kill them or run to your team for help. Stagger your abilities to keep self-healing and deny the follow-up to their combos. Be careful when you're in your ultimate because Magik can one-shot you if she ults. For Wolverine, just keep your distance from him because he'll typically prioritize tanks. If your tank gets kidnapped, you can freeze him or pierce log both him and your tank to help your tank get away. If he targets you, freeze him and put some distance between him and yourself. The main thing to watch out for is his ult, which is fast and does a lot of damage. If people don't die on the ultimate impact, they will probably die shortly after, so you can try and save your team with available abilities. Due to how fast it is, it's okay even if you're unable to ult to save everyone that got hit. Just make sure to stay spread out to minimize collateral damage from his ult. Iron Fist is very annoying, chases hard, and is just tenacious all around. He will usually flank from above and around walls. You can bait out his block with some damage before you try and freeze him, and if you do freeze him, he's probably dead. He has the kick that's his main escape, but can be used to do more damage to low health targets, so make sure your team is relatively healthy at all times, yourself included. You can freeze him while he's ulting, but note that he has shorter block cooldown during his ult. If you see Spider-Man swing in and he hits you with his web, start your passive self-healing with the skill so he can't easily one-shot you. Try to poke him out so he goes away. If he engages on someone else, make sure to heal them while they're under damage so they survive his combo. You can freeze him to stop his ult, so hold your ice ball as necessary. For Black Panther, do your best to spot him early and poke him out. If he engages on you, use your abilities to start your self-sustain passive. You can try to freeze him, but usually he's too mobile to hit. If he engages on someone else, make sure to keep your distance from the Black Panther's abilities and to keep healing your teammates so they can survive his combo. You can freeze him when he casts his ult, but the ult animation is too fast for me, so I've never done it successfully. It may also be worthwhile to counter ult his ult if he's about to wipe your team by himself. For characters like Squirrel Girl, Namor, Storm, Winter Soldier, Punisher, Iron Man, and Scarlet Witch, these characters usually play with the team, so just dodge their projectiles as necessary and play near a natural cover. If they like to flank you or try to get close, poke them out before they can set up. You can also easily kill them with your Ice Ball headshot combo. You can outduel them if you use all your abilities, so do whatever it takes to survive and or kill them. If you can afford to, poke them in teamfights to make them back off or potentially kill them, but usually they're doing so much damage to your frontline that you can only afford to poke them with your piercing log. Keep your distance from Winter Soldier and Scarlet Witch because most of their damage combo is up close in the fight. You can absolutely destroy flying characters as a hit scan, so poke Storm and Iron Man if you see them. Make them scared to show themselves so they can't constantly do damage to your team. You can freeze Scarlet Witch's ultimate, Iron Man's ultimate, and Storm's wind-up for her ultimate. If Storm's ultimate succeeds, it's best to counter it with a defensive support ult unless you have another way to survive. If neither you nor the other support has ult, spread out so the casualties are minimized. If Winter Soldier is trying to get a reset for his ultimate, you can freeze him to deny him of his kill, or if you have your team with you, kill him. For Moon Knight, you just have to watch out for his Ankh kill combo on isolated targets. He'll usually be stationed high ground, so poke him out of his spot. If he tries to get you with his Ankh, make sure to self-heal and back away from or kill the Ankh as soon as possible. When he's playing with his team and poking your frontline, avoid standing with your team so you don't take collateral ricochet damage. Star-Lord is a very annoying flanker. Poke him and keep your distance as much as you can. He does bursts of damage up close, so shoot him with your logs if he engages on you. If he decides to do his Beyblade move to finish you off, you can freeze him and kill him. He can dodge your Ice Ball with his invincibility, so make sure you don't get baited. You can freeze him in his ult too, but keep in mind he can use his dodge while using his ult. Against full dive, like if their team consists of 2 or more dive characters, you will have to play with your team more or consider swapping off of Luna if no one on your team wants to help you survive. Luna does not have a good time alone versus, for example, both Black Panther and Magik running her down at the same time. Rocket Raccoon is a good alternative if you're forced to fend for yourself. This video is a recommendation based on my experience and what worked for me. What worked for me may not work for you. Take the info provided with a grain of salt for games in Celestial and beyond because I have little experience playing Luna well beyond Celestial. Friendly reminder to not tilt Q, and if you're not having fun, to take a break and rehydrate. If this video was helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Thanks for watching!
Thank you!